Welcome to the latest episode of Out of the Mouth of Babes Bible Series. Today is Thursday, August the 13th, and my name, for those who don't know me, is Brandon Israel. As always, I'm going to come to you giving you a lesson directly out of the Bible, because that's what I choose to teach out of. And the title of today's lesson is Hearts of Men. I repeat, Hearts of Men. And the Lord had me put this lesson together because I've been looking around in the world today, talking to people, conversating with all type of people as I always do. And we're living in very uncertain times in this day and age. At the moment right now, nobody even knows how they're gonna sustain themselves financially. We got riots and lootings and pain and suffering all over. We got pandemics. We got all type of stuff going on right now in the world today. And just even on a personal level, we had a pretty bad storm out here. Even my house was affected by it, still affected by it. I had a blackout for a couple of days. Praise the Lord, I had a generator to plug up, but what about those who didn't have a generator? Things like that. And to be honest, my internet still is not working. So Lord willing, I'll be able to get this up via my hotspot on YouTube later today. So with all that going on and with all the issues in the world today, I was talking to a brother of mine. I was talking to him actually earlier about this lesson because, we got to understand first and foremost that a lot of the things that we see going on in the world and a lot of the things that's happening all around us, we have to understand that God is always in control. I know that's something that's commonly said among most Bible believers, but it is a fact. God is in control, and we have to keep that in mind and understand that even when, things aren't going the way we want them to go, that He's allowing that to happen as well. And the first thing we have to learn in that regard is that, like the Bible says in Jeremiah, the 17th chapter, it says something along the lines of, cursed is the man that maketh flesh his arm and putting his trust in man, something like that along the lines. Now I believe it says, cursed is the man that trusted in man and making flesh his arm. So I say that to say that we can't, totally depend on leadership, to get us out of situations or get us into good situations or whatever it may be. Because God is ultimately controlling the hearts and minds of everybody. So when we look to leaders or we see leaders do things that, we may not agree with, or we see leaders do things that, may not make any sense to us, we got to understand that God is actually doing that too. God is the one that controls the spirit of a man. Just like when you read in the Bible back about the days of Ahab when he was a king and he was king of Israel. The Lord wanted him dead. So what did he do? He moved the minds of all his false prophets to tell him a lie and tell him that he would go to war and he would prevail. Because in the ultimate goal God has is for His will to be done. And you got to understand, for His will to be done, a whole lot of other things, maybe not even in relation to what you got going on in your life, has to go on, because there's a big world we're living in, and His will is being done throughout each and every individual that's on this planet one way or another. He is the one that's stirring up the spirit, or when we say spirit, we mean minds of everybody, to do what's ultimately going to work out to be His plan. And we're going to read a scripture later on in this lesson in Isaiah's 45th chapter, where he details that, or he says that in a very detailed manner to let us understand that, people in power, people that's in leadership positions, they're ultimately controlled by God to do good or to do evil. So when you understand that the Lord is manipulating the hearts and the minds of everybody around you, then it's kind of easier for you to cope with things you don't quite agree with, or things that you may see that's out of place in the world today. But we're going to get right to it, because this was supposed to be a 45-minute lesson, but it kind of got out of hand, as a lot of my lessons do. So we're going to get right to it. we're going to start this lesson off in Psalms. I try to always start off in Psalms. Psalms, the 76th chapter. We're going to start off in Psalms, the 76th chapter. Let me get situated here, and we can begin shortly. Get everything up and running. Keep a backup on my phone just in case, I make a writing error when I'm doing my lessons. All right, so we're going to start in Psalms, the 76th chapter. And I'm going to start reading at verse 1. Psalm 76 and verse 1. It goes, "In Judah is God known. His name is great in Israel. In Salem also is his tabernacle and his dwelling place in Zion. There break he the arrows of the bow, the shield, and the sword, and the battle. Selah. Thou art more glorious and excellent than the mountains of prey. The stout-hearted are spoiled. They have slept their sleep. And none of the men of might have found their hands. At thy rebuke, O God of Jacob, both the chariot and horse are cast into a dead sleep. Thou, even thou, art to be feared. And who may stand in thy sight when once thou art angry? Thou didst cause judgment to be heard from heaven. The earth feared and was still. When God arose to judgment to save all the meek of the earth, Selah. Surely the wrath of man shall praise thee. The remainder of wrath shalt thou restrain. Vow and pay unto the Lord your God. Let all that be round about him bring presents unto him that ought to be feared. He shall cut off the spirit of princes. He is terrible to the kings of the earth." And I chose this psalm just for the 12th verse. I like to read the whole thing when I open up a lesson. But he said at the 12th verse, he shall cut off the spirit of princes. He is terrible to the kings of the earth. So what is he letting you know right there? He's letting you know that he can manipulate the spirit of people in power, just like he can manipulate the spirit of a close friend, a relative, or a family member right in your life today. He's ultimately working in and through everyone on this earth because his will is the ultimate goal in mind. He's going to make sure that his will is done no matter what pieces he has to move or what mind he has to manipulate or what spirit he has to stir, as the Bible likes to say, to make it happen. We're going to keep going. Let's go to Daniel, the 2nd chapter. And we're going to deal with people starting off more or less from what I would say leadership role, because that's what we tend to do when things are going a certain way that we don't like. We tend to look to our leadership. I watch a lot of the news, and they constantly on certain news outlets, constantly repeat the fact that we have incompetent leadership in this country. Say what you may about Donald Trump. I don't really feel no type of way about him, but I understand as crazy as he may seem to some people, which he doesn't really seem that crazy to me, to be honest with you. But as crazy as he may seem to some people, I understand that God is working through him as well. I can see some of the things that Donald Trump has done, some of the laws and stuff he's put into place. I can see how that affects what I can read in the Bible as far as prophecy being fulfilled. I can see that. I can see that clear as day how the United States is, isolating itself from Europe right now to this day through his foreign policies. So what does that force Europe to do? It forces them to stick together. It forces them to create their own army. It forces them to combine their income. And when I understand that in the Bible, it lets me know that those nations are going to rule the world, then it was just a matter of time before they had to stand on their own 2 feet and not look to the United States for leadership. So, when you understand what ultimately the end is, you can see certain pieces or certain moves being made to affect or bring that end into play. But we're going to go to, like I said, Daniel, the 2nd chapter. And I'm going to start reading at verse 20. He says, Daniel answered and said, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. He changeth the times and the season. He removeth kings and setteth up kings." So what he's saying right now, the Lord is the one that's ultimately, you think your vote matters. Yeah, it matters to an extent, I would say, but even to even to the most basic process of thinking, we got to understand that why do people agree with certain people? You know, it's because, you know, we're all products of our environment, and no matter what we may feel about, you know, how an election may play out or how it may, you know, or how we may affect it, ultimately you're just one vote. So if I'm voting one way, which I don't, but if I vote Democrat, which I probably never, but if I was to vote that way, then there's 50 million other people that's going to vote another way. So God can use those 50 million people to put the person he wants in the power. Even though I may feel a certain type of way, or I might agree with certain policies another person may have, God don't necessarily need me to do that. He's going to make 50 other million people agree with the current president and support the current president, regardless of how I may feel, because he stirred up their spirit to be online with what our leader is doing right now. I'm going to read that verse again, verse 21. And he changeth the times and the season. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. Let's go get a good example of that, because like Peter said, all these things are examples in the Bible of the Lord doing exactly what he said he was going to do. And we're going to read a story that's pretty well known. We're going to read about the Exodus out of Egypt. And what I mean by that is the children of Israel being delivered out of slavery when they were in Egypt. And, you know, we read the story, we understand the miracles, and we see the great works that God wrought in the land of Egypt to free his people. But ultimately, the main thing that happened that I can see is, or the thing that sticks out to me, I should say, is how the Lord is always working behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, you know. Yeah, he could have easily sent hellfire on Egypt and spared the children of Israel. And it would have been that. They would have walked out freely. But ultimately, he wanted it to play out a certain way. And for it to play out a certain way, what did he have to do? He had to manipulate the hearts of men. He had to manipulate the hearts of men. That's why I titled this lesson, The Hearts of Men. And I could have put on the end of it, manipulated by God. He had to manipulate the hearts of men so that it can go exactly the way he wanted it to go. Exactly the way he told Moses it was going to go before it even happened. And we're going to read that as well. Exodus, the 9th chapter. And we're going to start reading at verse 13. And the Lord said unto Moses, Rise up early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord God of the Hebrews, Let my people go, that they may serve me. For I will at this time send all my plagues upon thine heart, and upon thy servants, and upon thy people, that thou mayest know that there is none like me in all the earth. So the Lord is letting Moses, or he's telling Moses, or directing Moses, I would say, to tell Pharaoh to let the people go, and that he's going to do bad things to him. That's what he means when he says, For at this time I will send all my plagues upon thine heart, and upon thy servants, and upon thy people, that thou mayest know that there is none like me in all the earth. So he's pretty much warning Pharaoh of what's to come through the mouth of Moses. But just watch how this warning is received and why it's received a certain way. Then he goes on in verse 15 to say, For now I will stretch out my hand, that I might smite thee and thy people with pestilence, and thou shalt be cut off from the earth. And in very deed for this cause have I raised thee up, for to show in thee my power, and that my name may be declared throughout all the earth. You see that? He said about Pharaoh, he said, and in very deed for this cause have I raised thee up. So what is he saying right there? I know Old English is kind of hard to understand. We're going to read a more, I would say, modern saying of it in Romans right after this. But when he says, in very deed for this cause have I raised thee up, he's pretty much telling Moses to tell Pharaoh, for the most part, this is why you was born, bro. This is why you was born. I had you born. I had you come up. I had you come to great power to destroy you. To destroy you. Now, you would think that, Pharaoh would have the opportunity to heed to this warning. But pay attention to what else the Lord said. And yet exaltest thou thyself against my people, that thou would not let them go. Now, like I said, we're going to read a New Testament version of that. Let's go to Romans, the 9th chapter. Romans, the 9th chapter. Because Pharaoh, as we're going to read here, was, as we would like to say, stuck between a rock and a hard place. Because even if he had it in his heart to heed the warning that the Lord had Moses give him, the Lord did something to him so he wouldn't. And that's amazing. When you recognize that God is ultimately manipulating and moving the hearts of man to do his will, you really got to be careful. You really got to be careful and make sure you stay on God's good side. Because he will move your heart to do something crazy and get yourself in a lot of trouble. If you found yourself on the wrong side of Jesus, as we like to say. Romans, the 9th chapter. And let's see what Paul had to say about the same very instance we just read in Exodus. Romans, the 9th chapter. I'm going to start reading at verse 15. For he said to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. So then it is not of him that willeth, nor of him that runneth, but of God that showeth mercy. So he's letting you know right now, in a lot of situations, especially when mercy is involved, and things of that nature, it's not really much we can do about it. That's what he means when he says that right there in verse 16. So then it is not of him that willeth, nor of him that runneth, but of God that showeth mercy. Because God can ultimately give you a terrible mindset, just like he gave Saul a terrible mindset till he got to the point, and the Bible calls that an evil spirit, and that's what we understand that to be. The Lord can give you he can send an evil spirit at you. He don't have to send a good spirit at you. He can send an evil spirit your way to manipulate your mind and do something wicked. If you find yourself being a wicked person already or angering God to a certain extent, like Saul did. Saul found himself in that very situation. Saul went from, you can read it on your own, 1 Samuel, but Saul went from prophesying, being anointed king of Israel, to losing his mind and trying to kill his own son, trying to kill his number one servant, David, to just snapping out, dealing with witchcraft and all type of foolishness. Because the Lord manipulated his mind in a way, or allowed Satan to manipulate his mind in a way where he couldn't control himself. And that's what we have to understand. God ultimately controls our very minds. That's why when you read the scripture, when it says, Satan won't tempt you more than ye are able, because God won't allow that to happen in certain situations. If you're a servant of God and you're trying to serve the Lord the right way, he won't allow that to happen. But if he wanted that to happen, it can happen. Because like the Bible says also, there's no secret you can hide from Satan. Satan knows what buttons to push. He knows where you're weak at. So we have to always understand that God is ultimately in everybody, or behind the scenes, always pulling the strings, as the brother used to tell me all the time. But I'm going to read verse 16 again. Verse 16. So then it is not of him that willeth, nor of him that runneth, but of God that showeth mercy. For the scripture saith unto Pharaoh, even for this same purpose have I raised thee up, that I might show my... For the scripture saith unto Pharaoh, even for this same purpose have I raised thee up, that I might show my power in thee, and that my name might be declared throughout all the earth. Therefore he hath mercy on whom he will have mercy, and whom he will hardeneth. Key word, hardeneth, because that's exactly what he did to Pharaoh. That's what I meant when I said Pharaoh didn't have the opportunity to repent. See, the people of Nineveh during the days of Jonah, when they got the warning from Jonah, they repented. They put on sackcloth, they fasted, they stopped the foolish ways they was doing. They stopped doing everything that they was doing that was angering God. And the God repented himself of the evil he was going to do unto them. But in this situation, God wanted his name declared among the whole entire earth. So in order to do that, what does he have to do? He had to take down the most mighty nation around at that time. Egypt was the world power of the day and age that Moses lived in. Was nobody that I can even hear about in history more powerful than the pharaohs of their time. So that's what he was doing there. But he said in verse 17 again, for the scripture saith unto Pharaoh, even for this same purpose have I raised thee up, that I might show my power in thee, and that my name might be declared throughout all the earth. And by doing what he did to Egypt and destroying Egypt the way he destroyed them, that's exactly what happened. The fame of God went out throughout the entire planet because he did great works to a powerful nation. But let's go back and read some of them firsthand. Let's go to Exodus, the 7th chapter. And we're going to read a little bit about it and see how the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, that he wouldn't do the right thing. Now that's messed up when the Lord can put you in a situation where you won't do the right thing. That's a scary situation to be in. The Bible refers to some things called reprobate. Now I imagine that's very similar to it. But when you in a situation where you can't get right, then, man, Lord have mercy on you. Let's go to Exodus, the 7th chapter. And we're going to read the first-hand instance of it in Exodus. Exodus, the 7th chapter. And I'm going to start reading at verse 1. And the Lord said unto Moses, see, I have made thee a god to Pharaoh, and Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. Thou shalt speak all that I command thee, and Aaron thy brother shall speak unto Pharaoh, that he send the children of Israel out of his land. Out of his land. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt. See, the Lord wanted this to happen. He wanted to destroy Egypt the way he destroyed Egypt. Now I don't know why. I'm not in the mind of God, but God has his reasons, and we are not the ones to question it. But he said plainly at verse 3, I will harden Pharaoh's heart and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt. So what does he mean, harden his heart? He's not going to heed to the warning you're giving him. The Lord plagued Egypt with a total of 10 plagues, one of which should have been enough for Pharaoh to say, look, you know what, I'm fighting a fight I can't win. Like, just for instance, one of the plagues, we're not going to read them all, but one of the plagues was, for 3 days and 3 nights, it was pitch black in Egypt to the point to where you couldn't see in front of you, that no person moved out of their place for 3 days. That's what the Bible says. The Bible says it was so dark you could feel it. So dark you can feel it. Now, any person in their right mind would have been like, you know what? I throw in the towel. I can't fight this. I can't fight this. Egypt prayed to the sun god Ra. Obviously God eliminated him, the God of the Bible, the God of Israel, eliminated him because 3 days and 3 nights, it was dark enough for you to feel it. I don't even know what dark enough to feel even looks like, but that's what he did to him. And even after that, he still didn't submit. He didn't submit to a power that he knew he had no win against, because the Lord hardened his heart. The Lord manipulated his mind in a way that he thought he had some fight. And that's a scary position to be in. I'm going to read verse 3 again. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt. But Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that I may lay my hand upon Egypt and bring forth mine armies and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt by great judgments. God is telling Moses, yeah, you telling him all this, but he ain't going to do it. I'm going to make sure he don't do it. I'm going to make sure he don't do it so I can put my hands on him. That is very scary if you understand the power God actually wields. That's why the Bible says it's a fearful thing to fall in the hands of the living God. It's a fearful thing because he would have you fighting a fight you would normally in your right mind know you can't win. In verse 5, he goes on to say, and the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I stretch forth mine hand upon Egypt and bring out the children of Israel from among them. And Moses and Aaron did as the Lord commanded, so did they. And Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron 83 years old when they spake unto Pharaoh. So that's saying Moses was 80, and Aaron was 83 at the time when they went and stood before Pharaoh. Is that all I want to read there? No, I'm going to keep going. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying, when Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, show a miracle of you, then thou shalt say unto Aaron, take thy rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent. And Moses and Aaron went in unto Pharaoh, and they did so as the Lord had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh, and before his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers. Now the magicians of Egypt, they also did in like manner with their enchantments. So when Moses dropped his spear or his staff and it became a snake, Pharaoh had his magicians that can do tricks. They did the same exact thing. For they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. So now, you sitting in the king's seat, Moses and Aaron come to you telling you let the children of people go, and then show you a sign, and he throws the staff to the ground and it becomes a snake. Now you got magicians that can do some tricks and some stuff to make it look as if they're doing the same thing. But you're sitting there watching after a while, their snake eat all their snakes. Your one snake eat all their snakes. You would hope like, okay, look, I believe that my magician like this the best y'all got. Can y'all do this? But no, that's not what he was on. You know why? Because at verse 13, what the Lord said he was going to do, and he hardens Pharaoh's heart, that he hearkened not unto them as the Lord had said. So the Lord is ultimately putting Pharaoh in a tough spot, regardless of how he may normally think, because his will must be done. He has an ultimate plan of what he wants to do. Verse 14, and the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened. He refuses to let the people go. Let's save a little, actually we're going to skip over to the 11th chapter of Exodus and read a little bit more. 11th chapter of Exodus. I'm going to start reading at verse 1. And the Lord said unto Moses, yet I will bring one more plague upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. So after this, up until this point, the Lord had hit him with a number, I believe 9 plagues up until this point. And Pharaoh, for a minute, he showed some submission, but like I said, the Lord is dealing with him mentally. Like at one point, Pharaoh was like, y'all can go, but then he backtracked on it. Then he said something along the lines of, well, y'all can go, but you got to lead your sheep. Then he backtracked on it because the Lord is manipulating his mind. He is manipulating his mind. That's what I mean when I say the title of the lesson is The Hearts of Men. The heart in the Bible, when the Bible talks about heart, it's not talking about this in your chest. It's talking about this in your head. This is ultimately what guides you. This is ultimately where all your movements and thoughts and beliefs are conceived. So I'm going to start reading that verse 1 again. And the Lord said unto Moses, yet will I bring one plague more upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterwards, he will let you go hence. When he shall let you go, he shall surely thrust you out hence altogether. The Lord said, I'm going to do one more thing to him. And after this, he going to know it's a wrap. Speak now in the ears of the people, and let every man borrow of his neighbor, and every woman of her neighbor, jewels of silver and jewels of gold. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man of Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants, and in the sight of the people. So what did the Lord do? He gave, not only is he dealing with Pharaoh on a mental level and got him tripping, not recognizing the power that's in front of him, he got Pharaoh people favoring the Israelite people. He got them, he didn't change their minds to care for the children of Israel. See, not only can the Lord manipulate an individual, but as we're going to see later in this lesson, he will manipulate a nation. He will stir up the spirit of an entire nation. And that's what we got to understand today, what's going on in this country today. That this nation spirit is stirred to be against one another. And if you don't see that, then you're not watching the news or you're blind. This entire nation is at odds with one another. Half on this side, half a dozen on this side, half a dozen on this side. Defund the police, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, from whatever you want to name. It's a fight over it right now. Because the Lord is destroying the very fabric of the United States of America from within. And that's how this nation ultimately is going to fall. It's going to corrupt from within. That's how the Lord does it. And we're going to read a little bit into that later in this lesson. I just wanted to say that. So he's telling the children of Israel at verse 2, you know what? When you go, before you leave, start getting stuff from them. Don't leave with nothing. You see that gold chain on their neck? Ask for that. She gonna give it to you. You see that cart over there in the back of their yard that's brand new and got good wheels on it? Ask for that. They gonna give it to you. Because I got their mind in a spot where they gonna be like, just go. Just go. Matter of fact, your God is powerful. Your God is real. Whatever you need, I'm gonna aid you. So that's what he said that for. So verse 3, he said, God and the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servant, and in the sight of the people. And Moses said, thus said the Lord, about midnight. He said, where am I at? Exodus 11. He said, thus said the Lord, about midnight will I go out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beasts. And there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it any more. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue against man or beast. You see that? The Lord said that not even a dog gonna bark at y'all. God controls the beast. God controls the mind of the animals. Pay attention to the prophet back in the days of Jeroboam, when the Lord sent the lion at him and he destroyed him and tore him to pieces and left the donkey right there and stood next to the donkey and didn't eat neither carcass. Didn't even kill the donkey. People riding by seeing a dead man, a donkey, and a lion just chilling. See, because God is in control of the minds of everything. He's in control of the mind, or he controls the minds of every breathing thing on this earth. Everything living, God can manipulate it. God can manipulate it. I didn't put it in my lesson, I don't believe, but you can read that even in the days of Noah, when he came off the ark. What did God tell? The dread of you and all the beasts. You ain't got to worry. Because Moses, 8 people alive? Animals everywhere, livestock. You know, you got lions, tigers, and bears probably running around. They weren't going to mess with Noah. Because the Lord said he's going to put the dread of Noah in them animals. Just like he's talking about right here. And at verse 8, he goes on to saying, all these thy servants shall come down unto me, and bow down themselves unto me, saying, get thee out, and all the people that follow thee. And after that I will go out. And he went out from Pharaoh in great anger. And the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that my wonders might be multiplied in the land of Egypt. And Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh, and the Lord hardens Pharaoh's heart, so that he would not let the children of Israel go out of his land. The Lord still is manipulating the mind of Pharaoh, so he won't submit. He won't submit to a power that he obviously has no win against. Because God can do that to you. God can move somebody to favor you. God can move somebody to hate you. God can move somebody to do you harm. God can move somebody to do you good. God ultimately is controlling the hearts of men. And we understand that, we'll know how to maneuver a little bit better. But let's keep going. Let's go to Exodus the 12th chapter. Exodus the 12th chapter, and read the end of the story. Exodus the 12th chapter, and I'm going to start reading at verse 30. Exodus 12 and verse 30. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants, and all the Egyptians. And there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. So the Lord did what he said he was going to do, as he said before. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, rise up and get you forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go, serve the Lord as ye have said, and take your flocks and your herds as ye have said, and be gone, and bless me also. Now he's talking about bless me. You know, the Lord hit him with that hammer, that last hammer, and now he he got some submission in him. But the Lord still ain't done with him. And the Egyptians was urging upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, we be all dead men. And the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading troughs being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they required. And they spoiled the Egyptians. What do you mean they spoiled the Egyptians? They robbed them pretty much. But they ain't robbed them like physically, like took nothing from them. But let me get all that. Yeah, I know y'all put me out, but on my way out, I like that. Can I have that? Yeah, take it. Take it. Take it. Whatever you want, take it. And it says also, and the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men beside children. So the Lord had all these things happen, and he had Pharaoh respond in a way to make everything happen the way he wanted it to happen. The way he wanted it to happen. And the easiest way to know that he wanted it to happen that way, let's go back to Exodus, the 3rd chapter. Before even Moses went to Egypt, pay attention to what the Lord told Moses. Exodus, the 3rd chapter, Exodus 3, and when I get there, I'm going to start reading at verse 20. Because this is when he was telling Moses to go to Egypt, go back to Egypt, and free the people. But this is also what he said too, on top of that. Verse 20. And I will stretch out my hand and smite Egypt with all my wonders which I will do in the midst thereof. And after that, he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And it shall come to pass that when ye go, ye shall not go empty. You should not go empty. So the Lord said, nah, when y'all leave, y'all going to leave balling. Y'all going to leave rich. Y'all not going to leave as an enslaved people with nothing but the clothes on y'all back. Y'all going to leave rich. And how did he do that? By hardening Pharaoh's heart and putting the people of Egypt through what he put them through with the flies and the locusts and the boils and the darkness and the hellfire and I can't remember all of them. The killing of the firstborn. All that changed the spirit of the nation or the people of Egypt. Over time, they was like, man, whatever these people want, they can have. I know they used to be our slaves, but they ain't our slaves no more. We gonna be their servants. We gonna bow down to them. So that's what he said. He said, and I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And it shall come to pass that when ye go, ye shall not leave empty. But every woman shall borrow of her neighbor, and her that sojourneth in her house, jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. And ye shall put them upon your sons and upon your daughters, and ye shall spoil the Egyptians. So how did that have to happen? That had to happen through the Lord punishing the people or punishing Pharaoh a certain way. So if the Lord would allow Pharaoh to just be like, first hint, see the serpent, say, you know what, I can't fight that, y'all go, we don't leave with nothing. Nobody's intimidated or have favor. We don't have favor in anybody's eyes. But throughout the plagues and the darkness and the death of the firstborn, throughout all his wonders, as he said, oh yeah, we had favor in their sight. We had favor in their sight. Then after that, let's go to Job, the 32nd chapter. Job, the 32nd chapter. We're going to read one verse here. Job, the 32nd chapter. And let's pay attention to what some Elihu said, if I'm correct. His name is Elihu. Job 32, and I'm going to start reading at verse 6. And Elihu, the son of Barachel, the Buzite, answered and said, I am young, and ye are very old. Wherefore I was afraid, and durst not show you my opinion. I said, days should speak, and multitudes of years should teach wisdom. But there is a spirit in a man, Well, there is a spirit in man, and the inspiration of the Almighty giveth them understanding. So he's letting you know there's a spirit in the man, there's a mind in the man. And the understanding, that mind having understanding, that comes from God. And see, that's what the Lord did to Pharaoh. He took away his understanding. Because, trust me, after plague 1 and 2, Pharaoh should have seen, like, I can't fight this. Like, what? Are you going to fight a hurricane? No, you're going to get out the way. Well, the Lord brought hurricane-like plagues through Egypt, and he decided to stand and fight. Because the Lord was messing with his mind. The Lord hardened his heart so he wouldn't heed to what he would probably knew to be true, that I need to let these people go. But the Lord's will needed to be done. The children of Israel need to leave rich. He needed to make his name great for all these things that he wanted to get the children of Israel to come to pass. He needed it to happen a certain way. And the way he does it, in a lot of cases, is through angels. Through angels. Just like he did it in the days of Ahab with the angels. He did it during the times of Egypt. The Lord had put a lying spirit or an evil spirit in the mouth of your parents, if it came down to it. And you might heed that. You might heed that instruction because they're your parents. That's what the Lord talked about when he said when Jesus said, I don't come to bring peace but a sword. I'm going to turn father against son, mother against daughter. You know, when you tell your family or you tell your parents, you know, I'm going to serve the Lord, I'm going to stop celebrating Christmas, and they tell you that you in a cult, that's an evil spirit inside of them. That's an evil spirit. That's an evil angel making them say such a blasphemous thing to you because you're doing something you can plainly read out the Bible. Call it what you want, but that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. No matter who it's coming from, whether it's your family, your kids, your parents, the Lord is manipulating or allowing their mind to be manipulated to throw you off track. Hebrews, the 2nd chapter. And I'm going to start reading that verse 1. It says, therefore we ought to give the more earnest heed to the things which we have heard, lest at any time we should let them slip. For if the word spoken by angels was steadfast, and every transgression and disobedience received a just recompense or reward, how shall we escape, if we neglect so great salvation, which at the first began to be spoken by the Lord, and was confirmed unto us by them that heard him? God also bearing them witness, both with signs and wonders, and with divers miracles, and gifts of the Holy Ghost according to his will. For unto angels hath he not put in subjection the world to come, whereof we speak. So what is he saying right there? He's speaking on the world to come. He's speaking on the kingdom when the Lord comes back and set up his kingdom on this earth, this heavenly kingdom on this earth. And he said, for unto angels hath he not put in subjection the world to come. See, the world right now is in subjection to angels. See, the Lord is using angels right now to, behind the scenes, make all the moves, or have man make certain moves. When a leader or somebody make a move or they do something of some importance or something like that, they're being directed in one form or another by either counselors or their own mind even, or even a dream or something like that. All these things can be manipulated by angels though. Just like an angel can manipulate somebody to tell you a lie, he can manipulate somebody to tell you the truth. But it goes both ways. Just like a lot of people that's probably going to listen to this lesson or pay attention to this lesson probably know the Lord already. Well, that was a good spirit that you came into contact with. That was a good spirit that you came into contact with to allow you to see how to save yourself from the destruction to come. And those spirits are angels ultimately. This Bible was written by the inspiration of men, was inspired by angels to write this entire Bible. That's what it says. Let's read something else though. Let's go to Psalms, the 78th chapter. Psalms, the 78th chapter. And see what he said, the prophet David said, about exactly what was going on during the days of Moses and the children of Israel exiting Egypt. Psalms 78, And David is going to speak on the exact time period that we were just reading about in Exodus. Psalm 78, I'm going to start reading at verse 42. It goes, they remember not his hand, nor the day when he delivered them from their enemy, how he had wrought his signs in Egypt, and his wonders in the field of Zoan. And he had turned their rivers into blood, and their floods, that they could not drink. He sent divers sorts of flies among them, which devoured them, and frogs, which destroyed them. He gave also their increase unto the caterpillar, and their labor unto the locust. He destroyed their vines with hail, and their sycamore trees with frost. He gave up their cattle also to hail, and their flocks to hot thunder. These are all some of the plagues that the Lord plagued Egypt with. We didn't read them all, but these are some of the things that Pharaoh had to see and still deny the power that he was fighting. He still saw all these things happen and was like, you know what? I'm more powerful than that. Because the Lord hardened his heart. He was manipulating his mind. Verse 48, he gave up their cattle also to hail, and their flocks to hot thunderbolts. He cast upon them the fierceness of his anger, wrath and indignation and trouble, by sending evil angels among them. So that's how he did it. That's how he hardened Pharaoh's heart. That's how he sent the plagues among the people of Egypt, to plague them with some of the things that we just read about in this chapter. He sent evil angels among them to do evil work. See, even Satan's angels that was kicked out of heaven, they got a use until their use becomes the lake of fire. But while man is still walking on this earth, they have a use. God is going to use them to do what they're going to do already. Evil. He's going to use them. Like I said, in the days of Ahab, you can read that on your own. He put a lying spirit, or the angel actually told, an evil angel told God, I'm going to be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. See, would no good angel say that? And when you read the instance, he wasn't referred to as no good angel either. He said, I'm going to be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And that made Ahab do something that he had no business doing, which ultimately got him killed. See, and that's the same type of angel, the same type of mind manipulation the Lord used to have Pharaoh respond the way he responded to the great miracles being performed in front of him, and ultimately work out what the Lord wanted to do. He wanted to spoil the Egyptians. He wanted to make his name great in the earth, so people would fear the name of the God of Israel, because it was necessary for what he had planned for the children of Israel. But he spent evil angels. He said that again, verse 49. He cast upon them the fierceness of his wrath, of his anger, wrath and indignation and trouble, by sending evil angels among them. Evil angels. So that's what we have to understand, that God controls everything, the minds of everybody. And all he got to do is stir your spirit the right way. Stir the spirit of you, me, leaders, nations, anybody, an animal, beast, or whatever you want to call it, or whatever it wants to be. The Lord can manipulate the mind of it if he chooses to. Let's go to Luke, the 12th chapter. Luke, the 12th chapter. We're going to read something Jesus had to say here. Luke, the 12th chapter. And I'm going to start reading at verse 11. Luke, the 12th chapter, and verse 11. Because, we have to understand that, my old lady, she's supposed to be on the interview as we speak. And, that's her choice, but I don't push that on her. She wants to. But, even when we come into contact with people, like certain situations like the interview she's on, the Lord can give her favor in the sight of the person she's being interviewed by. Or the Lord can make the person not care too much for her. But ultimately, that is from God. So that's why we gotta always be willing to accept, the what's the word I'm looking for? The response we get from people, because you never know why the Lord has had someone respond to you a certain way, or relate to you a certain way, I should say. And you can't get caught up with how another person may relate to you or your views or your beliefs, because you never know how their mind is being manipulated by God, or how the Lord is allowing their mind to be stirred up or directed at that particular point in time. You know, we can read a lot of stories about that in the Bible. We're gonna read a couple more though, because I love the examples the Bible gives. I love the examples the Bible gives. That's why I read it so much. Where did I say we was at? Luke, the 11th chapter. And I'm going to start, Luke the 12th chapter. I'm going to start reading at verse 11. He goes to say, and when they bring you into synagogues and to magistrates and powers, take ye no thought how or what things ye shall answer, or what ye shall say. For the Holy Ghost shall teach you in the same hour what ye ought to say. What is the Holy Ghost? We got lessons to prove what the Holy Ghost is. The Holy Ghost is none other than an angel. Nothing but a good angel. Righteous angel that is going to direct you. How is he going to direct you? He's going to stir up your mind and say what needs to be said. Just like he can stir up your mind and say some foolishness. Or he would, Holy Ghost wouldn't. But an evil angel can stir up your mind or stir up someone's mind and say some foolishness. Or look at you a certain way or respond to you a certain way. So that goes to show that that's how God is manipulating the hearts of men, through these angels and through their actions or through their interactions with people. That's how God is getting this done. That's how he's working his will out. That's why the Bible said, we just read earlier, the world that we speak of to come is not manipulated by angels. See, the world that we're all looking to get into is going to be a world full of gods. See, God can't be manipulated by no angel, but man can. The hearts of man can easily be manipulated by an angel. The Lord can have certain things happen to you in your life. Certain things happen to you in your life. You can grow up as a young child. And I hate to use this example, but this is the best one I can think of right now. You can grow up as a young child. And let's say a young lady, and she's molested by a relative at a young age. Then when she gets to high school, she's raped by a stranger at a middle age. When she gets older, she's abused by her husband at an old age. Once all that has came to pass in her life, how do you think she's going to perceive men if she allows all her past experiences to still dwell within her? She's probably going to be a man-hating woman. She's probably going to be that way. But her spirit is stirred to be that way throughout the actions or throughout the things that can happen to her in her life. So, and that's the same way we are in the way we think. You know, I saw a post the other day. Somebody put up, I think it was on Instagram. And just a good example, you know, black people, we don't have the, well, not say black people, Israelite people, we don't always have the best experiences, obviously, with the police. Now, I'm not saying defund them, no. I don't get into politics. But we don't have the best experiences with police all the time, or the best interactions when it comes to us interacting with the police. So, somebody famous probably, put up a video of a little kid playing basketball. A little kid playing basketball in his front yard, playing basketball in the driveway. There was like a van or something in the driveway. Well, they have a camera set up to show the front of their house, you know, a little security camera. And they're watching him on a security camera. Or they probably wasn't watching him, but you could see him moving around. And a police car come driving down the block. Do you know this little kid? I mean, couldn't have been no older than like 8 or 9. Probably wasn't even that. He hid behind the van, like just nonchalantly, like just, can't let the police see me. Not doing it. He literally, you know, when he saw the police car, the van was right there, he kind of hugged the side of it until the police car went by. Watched them go by, and went back doing what he was doing. Why is that? Because in his mind, and what experiences taught him in his young age, that, you know, you need to avoid the police. The police don't mean you any good. Now, is that a good thing for a child that age, you think? No, I don't believe so. But that's how his mind is being programmed. That's how he is being trained at a young age, just from seeing what he sees in his environment. That's how he's being trained, that when a police car come by, I must hide. I don't want any interaction with them. And that's something that goes on here. That's something that goes on here. And the Lord is in control of that. Because the Lord allowed him to see the things and hear the things that he's heard up until this point in his young life to give him that outlook on police. So the Lord is ultimately controlling everything and the thought process of everybody. He's ultimately doing that. Let's keep going though. Let's go to Proverbs, the 16th chapter. Proverbs, the 16th chapter. Proverbs, the 16th chapter. We're going to read one verse here, I believe. Proverbs, the 16th chapter, and we're going to read verse 1. Proverbs 16 and verse 1. Like I said again, the title of this lesson is The Hearts of Men. And it's not the Tupac song. Proverbs 16 and verse 1 goes, the preparations of the heart in man and the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. Self-explanatory. The preparations of the heart in man, what do you mean preparations? How it is brought up. You know, how it is prepared, how it is groomed. The preparations of the heart in man and the answer from the tongue is from the Lord. See, the Lord is controlling that. The Lord is ultimately letting us go through and see the things that we see for us to think a certain way and respond a certain way. Because ultimately, it's his will that must be performed. In the big scheme of things, he's working his will out. And he's using everybody to make it happen. Everybody is playing a part to play, whether it's good or evil. Everybody's playing a part. You never know what your actions may have in this domino effect we call life. You never know. You never know. That's why you got to be careful what you do. Be careful how you treat people. Be careful how you respond to certain situations. Let's keep going. Let's go to Proverbs, the 29th chapter. Proverbs, the 29th chapter. And I'm going to start reading at verse 26. Well, I'm only going to read 26. Proverbs 29 and verse 26. Many seek the ruler's favor, but every man's judgment cometh from the Lord. So, like I was saying before, even how somebody else responds to you, no matter if it's good or bad, that comes from the Lord. The Lord can give you favor in the sight of a ruler, or he can give you disfavor in the sight of a ruler. That is from him. That is from God. God is in control, because in the end game is his will must be done, not our will. His will must be done. Let's go to Romans, the 28th chapter. Romans, the 28th chapter. Romans, the 28th chapter. I believe that's Romans. No, I'm sorry. Romans, the 8th chapter. Ain't no Romans 28. I'm sure. Romans, the 8th chapter. And I'm going to read verse 28. It says, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God and to them who are called according to his purpose. So as long as you serving the Lord, you know, now I'm going to read verse 27 too. I'm sorry. He says, verse 27, he that searcheth the hearts knoweth what is the mind of the Spirit, because he maketh intercession for the saints according to the will of God. So the Lord, like he's saying, is he's searching your heart. He's working with your heart. And ultimately, he's working with your mind. And no matter what, and no matter what, you know, you may be going through, you don't have to worry about, you know, how interactions may play out in your life as long as you continue to serve the Lord. Because his will is ultimately being done, whether it's affecting you in a good way or in a bad way. So you don't have to get bent out of shape either way. Just like I say, just accept your lickings and keep on pushing. And we got a great example of that. Let's go to Genesis, the 39th chapter. Genesis, the 39th chapter. Genesis 39. Genesis, the 39th chapter, and we're going to start reading at verse 7. And this is about Joseph. Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers. He ended up in a house of a captain as a slave who treated him well. But he had some issues with her wife, or with his wife, I should say. And this is where we're going to pick it up. Verse 7. Genesis 39 and verse 7. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph. And she said, lie with me. But he refused, and said unto his master's wife, behold, my master brought not what is with me in the house, and he hath committed all that he hath to my hand. So he's telling her right now, he said, my master, your husband, for the most part, he trusts me with everything. He don't even keep up with his stuff because I'm taking care of it. Then he said, there is none greater in this house than I. Neither have he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? And it came to pass, as she spake to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her to lie by her or to be with her. So she steady coming on to him. After he told her, I ain't going to get down like that. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there within. And she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. And it came to pass when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and was fled forth, that she called unto the men of her house and spake unto them, saying, see, he hath brought in a Hebrew unto us, to mock us. He came in unto me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. So she's pretty much finna claim fake rape, like women have done to us in slavery in this country. And she laid up his garment by her until his Lord came home. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, the Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us came in unto me to mock me. And it came to pass that I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled out. And it came to pass when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spake unto him, saying, after this manner did thy servant to me, that his wrath was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy, and gave him sight and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison. And whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. And the keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him, and that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. So what the Lord do for Joseph, even in jail, the Lord gave him favor in the sight of the guy running the jail. So to the point where it came to the point where Joseph was running the jail. He was doing all the work in the jail, because the Lord gave him favor in the sight of the jail keeper. Somebody that's accused of raping a captain's wife, a powerful man's wife. He get there, and the Lord stirred up the heart of the prison keeper to like Joseph, or to love Joseph in one way or another. So that's what we got to recognize when some things happen to us. We got to recognize the power of God. We think when good things happen to us, we think we didn't say a certain thing, we didn't look a certain type of way. That's not always the case, people. That's not always the case. The Lord is the one behind the scenes pulling the strings. The Lord is the one that ultimately gives favor and disfavor to each and every one of us, just like he did in this situation right here. Let's go to Acts, the 7th chapter, pick up a little more information about it. Because all this was being done, even the point of Joseph being sold into slavery, was for the Lord's will to be done. Acts, the 7th chapter. Acts, the 7th chapter, and we're going to start reading at verse 8. And he gave him the covenant of circumcision. And so Abraham begat Isaac, and circumcised him the 8th day. And Isaac begat Jacob, and Jacob begat the 12 patriarchs. And the patriarchs moved with envy, sold Joseph into Egypt, but God was with him, and delivered him out of all his afflictions, and gave him favor and wisdom in the sight of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he made him governor over Egypt and all his house. So that's so even when it came past for Joseph to stand in front of Pharaoh, the Lord gave Joseph favor in the eyes of Pharaoh. See, the Lord is the one manipulating the hearts of men in every situation to do you good or to do you bad. Then he goes on to say, now there came a dearth. Dearth means there was pretty much a famine, no rain for the most part, over the land of Egypt and Canaan, and great affliction, and our fathers found no sustenance. So sustenance means, they couldn't feed themselves. And Jacob heard that there was corn in Egypt. He sent out our fathers first. And at second time, Joseph was made known to his brother. And Joseph's kindred was made known unto Pharaoh. Then sent Joseph and called his father Jacob to him, and all his kindred, 15 souls. So if you know the story, you read the entire story of Joseph, even if you see the movie, all that happened, like Joseph said, because the Lord wanted Joseph to save a lot of people, include his entire family. He saved the lives of millions, probably, because he went down into Egypt. He got accused falsely of rape. He got locked up bogus. And the Lord saw him through all those afflictions and kept giving him favor in the sight of the people he was over, to the point where his affliction was a little bit easier to bear, all the way up to the point where he was the second highest ruler in Egypt and had the capability and the mind to save his own family that sold him into slavery in the first place. Not to mention, he saved the entire land of Egypt and all the lands around it. So the Lord's will is going to be done, and it's going to be done through people. And how is he doing that? He's manipulating the hearts of men to respond in the way that he wants them to respond. The Lord allowed his brothers to be envious of Joseph. Now, obviously, they was dealing with an evil spirit at that point in time, manipulating them to feel jealousy toward their own blood. That's an evil spirit, no matter who you are. If you feel envy and jealousy towards your own blood, you need to get over that, because you are dealing with an evil angel at this time. An evil spirit is manipulating your mind in a way that it shouldn't be. You got to remember that. So all this happened because mind manipulation from God. All this happened, even to the point of that woman lusting over Joseph. That's another evil thought put in her head by an evil angel or an evil spirit. All that is ultimately God behind the scenes pulling the strings to put Joseph in the exact place for him to be, ultimately for him to excel in this situation. For him to excel and do great things and become a great man in Egypt. Let's keep going though. We're going to pick up another great example I like. And this example comes with a historical reference. We're going to go to Isaiah, the 45th chapter. Isaiah, the 45th chapter. We're going to read a little bit of prophecy. Because the Lord needed his will to be worked out even in this situation. And I chose this one because we can read it in history as well. We're going to check it out in the Reader's Digest book, Last 2 Million Years as well. I don't do a lot of historical references, but I use them from time to time just to support the Bible. I don't use the Bible to support this. I use this to support the Bible. Isaiah, the 45th chapter. I'm going to start reading at verse 1. Thus saith the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him. And I will loose the loins of kings, to open before him the two-leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut. Okay, so now we're talking about Cyrus. If you know anything about history, this is Cyrus the Great. If I'm correct, he lived around 500 something BC, if I'm correct. Let me check, I got it wrote down in my notes. Yeah, he was, he lived around 500, 550 BC, reigned over the entire world, to be honest, but he started reigning over the land of Persia first. He conquered. And this is a Gentile. This is not a child of Israel that the Lord is talking about. He anointed Cyrus to do a job, to do his will. So I'm going to read it again, verse 1. Thus saith the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him. And I will loosen the loins of kings, to open before him the two-leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut. Now, the leaved gates we're talking about right here, these are, from what I understand in history, He's out of the gates of Babylon. If you know anything about Cyrus, he conquered Babylon. And we're going to keep going. He says at verse 2, I will go before thee and make the crooked places straight. I will break in pieces the gates of brass and cut in sunder the bars of iron. I will give thee the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places, that thou mayest know that I, the Lord, which called thee by thy name, am the God of Israel. For Jacob my servant's sake, Israel mine elect, I have even called thee by thy name. I have surnamed thee, though thou hast not known me. Now, at the time of this being written, people, we are talking about the days of Isaiah. We in a nation. We are still in our land at this time. We are still in our land. We haven't even been taken out of slavery yet. So Cyrus ain't even born, more than likely. You know, he's not even born. I don't believe he was even born when I'm not exactly sure when Cyrus was when Isaiah was written, but it was well before the reign of Cyrus. I would say that because the reign of Nebuchadnezzar didn't even happen yet. So I would bet my bottom dollar that he wasn't even born. But this is the Lord telling about all the good things he's going to do to him as far as giving him riches and power and things of that nature. But he said at verse 4, for Jacob my servant's sake, that's Israel, the people of Israel, and Israel mine elect, I have even called thee by name. I have surnamed thee, though thou hast not known me. What do you mean you ain't known me? You ain't going to be one of my servants. But you're going to do a great work for me. And I'm going to call you before you even come into place so that everybody know that it's real. And then he's going to say exactly that in verse 5. He said, I am the Lord, and there is none else. There is no God beside me. I girded thee, though thou hast not known me, that they may know from the rising of the sun and from the west that there is none beside me. I am the Lord, and there is none else. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. What is he talking about? He create evil. See, when evil things happen to you, it's not the Lord that does it because he's not a doer of evil things, but he got angels to do evil work for him. He got angels, righteous and evil alike, to do you harm if need be, or do harm to somebody, or do harm to a group of people if need be. He controls everything. He controls the wind. He controls the seas, tornadoes, hurricanes, whatever you want to name. Like I said, I'm just recently dealing with a blackout. You know, storm came through, wasn't even a long storm, but came through and knocked down half the trees in my town. You know, God is in control of this. God is ultimately manipulating these things through his angels. That's the world that we're in right now. It is in submission to these angels that God has got doing his work. But we hear because he's talking about Cyrus the Great. And with that, we're going to go into the last 2 million years. This is a book that's commonly known among most people that, you know, deal with the truth. It's Reader's Digest. And just to substantiate, you know, what we can read in the Bible, that, you know, you can read this stuff in history as well. Because Cyrus is a very prominent figure in history. And when you read history, it's only been 2 people that I can think of that, you know, was really called. Well, I can think of a third one, but he don't really count. But as far as like a world ruler, you know, haven't many people been surnamed the title the Great. Cyrus being the first and Alexander the second. Well, Alexander being the second, you know, and those were people that was of great prominence in the world. But we're going to read last 2 million years, and I'm going to start reading at verse 58. I'm at page 58. And we're going to read, it's a little section called After Belshazzar's Feast. It goes, Belshazzar's command was a gesture of contempt toward the Jews, whom Nebuchadnezzar had brought into captivity to Babylon. But while all this festivity and splendor was taking place in the king's palace,
Outside in the darkness, the forces of King Cyrus the Great of Persia have found a way to penetrate the city's apparently impregnable defenses. Well, the Lord said he was going to open the leave gates, right? And it said that Euphrates ran through Babylon, but it was too deep to be forded. Herodotus, Herodotus was a Greek historian, and he lived around 450 BC, describes how Cyrus ordered his men to dig canals so that the river was diverted into a marsh, and his troops could make their way along the riverbed into the town. Owing to the great size of the city, the outskirts were captured without the people in the center knowing anything about it. This is what Herodotus wrote. I'm gonna read it again. Owing to the great size of the city, so because the city was so big, the outskirts were captured without the people in the city or in the center knowing anything about it. There was a festival going on, and even while the city was falling, they continued to dance and enjoy themselves. It was then, according to Daniel, that there came forth fingers of a man's hand and wrote upon the plaster of the king's, upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. Now they're referring back to the Bible because, like most biblical or most historical references, a lot of them understand that some of the things that we can read in the Bible is fact. You know, most historians won't argue with the factual things they can read in the Bible because it goes along with, you know, written history from man. It was then, according to Daniel, that there came forth fingers of a man's hand and wrote upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. And the king saw the part of the hand that wrote, and this is the writing that was written: Many, many tekel upharsin, thou art weighed into the balances, and art found wanting. Thy kingdom is divided and given into the Medes and Persians. Until Daniel interpreted the words, the Babylonians would have read them as mathematical problem based on a series of weights, the manna, the shekel, and the pharsin, or half shekel. So, this is, they're supporting the fact, you know, and if you know anything about history, you're reading history, when Cyrus conquered Babylon, it wasn't a war. You know, he walked right in. But that's what the Lord had the prophet Isaiah say. He had the prophet Isaiah say, "I'm gonna open the leave gates." Ain't that what he wrote? Isaiah 45 and verse 1. He said, "I will loosen the loins of kings to open before him the two leave gates, and the gates shall not be shut." He walked right in. He walked right in. They so busy partying, he walked right in and took took Babylon without having shed any blood. We're going to read another article they have in here, not article, but a section they have in here about Cyrus. Just to show you that, you know, just like the Lord said he was going to give him the treasures and the powers and all this stuff, they're going to tell you some of the things Cyrus did. This is on page 74 or 75 I'm going to read from, and it's called Cyrus Founds an Empire. It says, a great influx of Aryans from the region of the Caucasus Mountains occupied Persia about 1000 BC. Iran, the Persians' own name for their country, means land of the Aryans. The Aryans established two rival kingdoms: the kingdom of the Medes, just south of the Caspian Sea in the area of Akbatana, the modern Hamadan, and the kingdom of Parsa, or Persia, to the east of the Persian Gulf. Persia suddenly expanded in the 6th century BC when Cyrus II, the Great of Parsa, defeated the Medes and conquered Assyria, Asia Minor, Babylonia, the steppes of Central Asia, and the lands as far east as India. In 546 BC, he united his conquests into a single empire. It became known as the Achaemenid Empire, after Achaemenes, an early king of the Persians from whom Cyrus traced his descent. When he conquered Babylon, Cyrus freed 40,000 Jews who had been made captive there by Nebuchadnezzar. So, remember the Lord said, "For my servant Jacob, Israel my elect, have I did this thing to you?" You can see why. Because when he took power, he freed 40,000 Jews who had been made captive there by Nebuchadnezzar and allowed them to return to Jerusalem, where he helped them to rebuild the Temple of Solomon. The Old Testament book of Ezra opens with an account of how God stirred the Spirit to show favor to the chosen, the Old Testament book of Ezra opens with an account of how God stirred the spirit of Cyrus, He manipulated the mind. He worked with the mind of Cyrus to do what he wanted to be done, to show favor to the chosen people. So now we seeing that. Now we're going to read the biblical account on it because they refer to it, so it would behoove us not to read it. Let's go to Ezra. Let's go to Ezra, the first chapter. But this stuff is known history that Cyrus did these things, and that he was one of the most powerful kings in the history of empires on this earth. Books and movies have been made about him. Ezra, the first chapter, and I'm going to start reading at verse 1. Now this is well long after Isaiah wrote what he wrote. Just show you that prophecy is real. And you can trust what you read in the Old Testament. You ain't got to think that all this doesn't matter anymore. Because there's plenty more to be done in the Old Testament that still hasn't been done. Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and put it also in writing, saying, Thus said Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord God of heaven hath given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he hath charged me to build him an house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Who is there among you of all his people? His God be with him, and let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and build the house of the Lord God of Israel. He is the God, which is in Jerusalem. And whosoever remaineth in any place where he sojourneth, let the men of his place help him with silver, and with gold, and with goods, and with beasts, beside the freewill offering for the house of God that is in Jerusalem. Then rose up the chief of the fathers of Judah and Benjamin, and the priests and the Levites, with all them whose spirit God had raised, to go up to build the house of the Lord, which is in Jerusalem. See, the Lord needed that house built because, we understand through prophecy, Jesus had to be somewhere. He had to fulfill a lot of prophecy, and all his prophecy was centered around Jerusalem and around this temple. So even though we was taken out of slavery, we was taken into slavery and put out of our land at this time, some of us had to be there for the prophecy about Jesus to be fulfilled. He had to die in Jerusalem. He had to, be born in Bethlehem. He had to hide in Egypt. These things that was written by the holy prophets, some of which was even written by Isaiah. So the Lord used Cyrus to do his will. A Gentile ruler. He used him to do his will. He stirred up his spirit. He manipulated his heart, his mind, to make his will come to pass. And I always thought that was a fly example of, how the Lord can stir up anyone. So all we have to do when we dealing with a situation, whether good or bad, is recognize the power of God. Recognize the power of God. Let's not get so high-minded and think it's something of our own nature, our own stature. God is the one that's ultimately doing these things. Even if you said the right thing, God gave you the spirit to say it. That's what we read in Luke. Let's keep going. Let's go to Isaiah, the 10th chapter. Got a few more. Like I said, I had intentions of this lesson being a lot shorter, but it obviously didn't work out that way. Isaiah, the 10th chapter. Isaiah, the 10th chapter. And we're going to start reading at verse 1. And we're going to get another example. It said, Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed, to turn aside the needy from judgment, and to take away the right from the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless. And what will ye do in the day of visitation, and in the desolation which shall come from far? To whom will ye flee for help, and where will ye leave your glory? So he's talking to the people of Israel, and they was doing wickedness, living wicked, and he was going to bring some destruction on them. And watch how he do it. He goes on to say, Without me they shall bow down under the prisoners, and they shall fall under the slain. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. Then he goes to say, O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger, and the staff in their hand is mine indignation. So now he's calling the Assyrians, on the children of Israel to cause havoc on them. He said, I will send him against an hypocritical nation, and against the people of my wrath will I give him a charge, to take the spoil and to take the prey, and to tread them down like the mire of the streets. Howbeit he meaneth not so, neither does his heart think so. But it is in his heart to destroy and cut off nations, not a few. So he's telling you right now, he's saying, the only reason the Syrian is even going to do this damage to you is because I'm making it. He ain't thinking about you. That's what he means when he say that. He said normally he wouldn't even care about you. You wouldn't even be on his radar. That's what he mean when he said, howbeit he meaneth not so, neither does his heart think so. Like, you ain't got nothing he wants, really. But because I want my will to be worked out, I'm going to stir him up against you, Israel. And he going to come down and deal with you. And it's not even his ambition to do so. It's not even his ambition to do so. That's what we got to understand in this day and age today. You know, people can do things to you or say things to you, and it can just be from the Lord. That might not even be, you know, their ambition. That may not be some well thought out plan. You know what I mean? That's just how the Lord is manipulating the situation, or how he's allowing angels to manipulate the situation. For whatever end it may be, it's going to be for his end, ultimately. Let's go to Matthew, the 12th chapter. Matthew, the 12th chapter. Because as I was saying earlier, you know, we was talking about, you know, well, I was talking about the fabric of this nation here that we living in, America. You know, we can see it is greatly tearing apart. It's tearing apart, you know. It's unsettling to even watch it, you know. But I know the Lord's will needs to be done regardless of, you know, how uncomfortable it may become. You know, seeing certain things happen, you know. Even though I serve the Lord, I don't like seeing, you know, my people rioting and, you know, acting a fool and, you know, and being made a target. I don't like to see evil happen to people, regardless of who they are, you know, because I know that I can be that person one day, you know, if the Lord allows something bad to happen to me. So, you know, but you can see, you know, how, you know, the fabric of this nation is tearing apart. You know, we all put one against the other. You know, it's just happening. You know, like I said, they talking about defunding the police. You know, it's all type of craziness going on just in this country alone. And you know, I understand why it has to be so, because you know this nation ultimately has to take a back seat to Europe. You know, I understand from reading the Bible that the European Common Market, or the 10, as you know, that we refer to them as, the nations, pretty much the nations that carry the euro. I understand through the Bible and prophecy that the Bible gives me that they are going to be in charge when the Lord comes back. So for that to happen, America has to have taken a back seat by that time. And if you're not looking, then you should. America is approaching this chair swiftly to go ahead and sit down, you know. Even just the moves the president is making, you know. He's, you know, like the point that he defunded, what's that thing they got? NATO. You know, the security treaty that they had with all the European countries and some of the countries outside of Europe. He's not dealing with that anymore. So what did that force Europe to do? They had to create their own army. So now the European Common Market has its own army. France, Germany, and all those nations, they combine their military. Well, for them to be the world power, they need to have a combined military. So, you know, I can see America, you know, falling. You know, the fabric of this nation is terribly tearing apart. You know, even with the pandemic that's going on today. You know, look how it's affecting this nation. You know, everybody's at odds. Can't nobody agree on anything. You know, everybody is up against each other. You know, it's his fault, it's their fault, it's their fault. He should have did this, she should have did that. He should have said this, he should have did that. He should have worn this, he shouldn't have worn that. You know, it's all conflict. No matter where you look, this country is conflicted to the core right now. But when you see the instances of, you know, I think if I'm correct, Italy was hit hard by it as well, to be a smaller nation. But what do you see on their news? Do you see riots and, you know, and I'm not saying that, you know, I know everything about Italy, but I watch foreign news. Is riots and, you know, police shootings and all type of stuff going on over there? No. They're playing violins from their balconies, singing to each other.
See, because that heart of that nation is they still holding on to a sense of togetherness. See, but that's from the Lord, because they have to stay together and grow together to become strong together and ultimately rule this world together. This nation has to fall in the matter of words for that combination of nations over there to take the lead role in the world that we know today. And just like the Lord is setting every one of us against each other, He's giving them a spirit of togetherness. He's giving them a spirit of, we gonna work together. And in a lot of cases, you do start from the top, but at the same time, the Lord, is, as I showed you, He manipulates at the top too. He moved kings and set up princes. We read that. So we're going to read what Jesus had to say, because, not only does the Lord, manipulate the minds of men, but He'll manipulate the spirit of a country, the spirit of a nation, the spirit of a city. He can manipulate that as well, ultimately through the mind. So we're going to start dealing with that a little bit. We're going to start off in Matthew the 12th chapter, and we're going to start reading at verse 43. And just pay attention to what Jesus said right here. It says, "When the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, he walketh through dry places seeking rest, and findeth none. Then he said, I will return into my house from whence I came out. And when he is come, he findeth it empty, and swept, and garnished. Then goeth he, and taketh with himself 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter in and dwell there. And the last state of the man is worse than the first. Even so shall it be also unto this wicked generation." So he's speaking about a generation of people during his time that, are going to be manipulated by evil spirits for the most part. And the end of it is going to be worse than the beginning. When they was dealing with one problem, they had one issue or two, then he come, and by denying him and rejecting him and killing him, they done compounded the evilness of the evil spirits they dealing with now. And the end of them is, worse than what it was before. So, but he's talking about a generation of people. He's talking about a multitude of people in this verse right here. He's not talking about just one individual being manipulated, like the Lord manipulated Cyrus and even manipulated Nebuchadnezzar. It's constantly the Lord is showing you that He rules the hearts of men. He searcheth the hearts. He tried the reins. He moves a man wherever He wants him to go. God is ultimately doing that. And He can move a nation the same exact way. And we're going to get an example of that. Let's go to 2 Chronicles, the 21st chapter. 2 Chronicles, the 21st chapter. 2 Chronicles 21, and I'm going to start reading at verse 12. 2 Chronicles, the 21st chapter, and I'm going to start reading at verse 12. I'm reading, my bad. And they came writing to him from Elijah the prophet, saying, Thus saith the Lord God of David thy father, because thou hast not walked in the ways of Jehoshaphat thy father, nor in the ways of Asa king of Judah, but hast walked in the way of the kings of Israel, and hast made Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to go a-whoring, like unto the whoredoms of the house of Ahab, and also hast slain thy brethren of thy father's house, which was better than thyself. Behold, with a great plague will the Lord smite thy people, and thy children, and thy wives, and all thy goods. And thou shalt have great sickness by disease of thy bowels, until thy bowels fall out by reason of sickness, day by day. So the Lord is talking to Jehoram, a king of Judah, and he was wicked. He killed all his brothers to maintain the crown, and also he was caught up in sacrilege or idolatry. So the Lord is pronouncing sentence on him. But then he goes on at verse 16, said, Moreover, the Lord stirred up against Jeroboam the spirit of the Philistines and of the Arabians, and that were near the Ethiopians. So what did the Lord do? He started making two nations of people started to dislike him. Two nations of people to do him harm. And they came up into Judah and break into it and carried away all the substance that was found in the king's house. And his sons also, and his wives, so that there was never a son left him, save Jehoaz, the youngest of his sons. And after all this, the Lord smote him in his bowels with an incurable disease. So he stirred up a nation of people, two nations of people, to come and just attack him out the blue. And rob him, spoil him good. Take his wives, take his kids, take his goods, and then he died. The Lord did that. The Lord is in control of the hearts of men, people. Let's go to Jeremiah, the 13th chapter. Jeremiah, the 13th chapter. And I'm going to start reading at verse 12. Jeremiah 13 and verse 12. Therefore thou shalt speak unto them this word. Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, every bottle shall be filled with wine. And they shall say unto thee, do we not certainly know that every bottle shall be filled with wine? Then shalt thou say unto them, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will fill all the inhabitants of this land, even the kings that sit upon David's throne, and the priests and the prophets, and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with drunkenness. So he's saying, the Lord's saying he's going to fill everybody up with drunkenness. You know, you are going to be dumb spiritually. That's what he means when he say drunkenness. Dumb spiritually. You're not going to be able to discern good from evil. He said he's going to do that to everybody. That's affecting the whole country. He said, and I will dash them one against another, even the fathers and the sons together, said the Lord. I will not pity, nor spare, nor have mercy, but destroy them. See, that's what's going on right now. The Lord is dashing this country one against another. He's dashing it one against another. Everybody against everybody. Liberals against the conservatives, conservatives against the liberals, gays against everybody, blacks on the sideline, blame for everything. You know, everything is a conflict. Everybody is against one another in one form or another, for one reason or another, I should say. So, but that's from the Lord, though. That is from God. He said, verse 14, I will dash them one against another, even the fathers and the sons together, said the Lord. I will not pity, nor spare, nor have mercy, but destroy them. Hear ye and give ear. Be not proud, for the Lord hath spoken. He's talking about what he's going to do to the children of Israel, that ultimately they are going to be destroyed from within. So when the end comes, they won't have no togetherness to fight. They won't have no togetherness to fight. So when Nebuchadnezzar came in there, they wasn't together. They were already at odds with one another. See, that's how the Lord does it. That's how the Lord does it. He'll put you in a situation where a nation in a situation mentally where they can't defend themselves. If this nation keeps going on the way it's going, everybody against each other, defund the police, and it turns to wild, wild west here, who is the United States going to be able to defend themselves from? Nobody. Nobody. They're going to ultimately have to bow down to the new world power, which is going to be Europe, like the Bible tells us. Let's go back to Deuteronomy, though, real quick. Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 3rd chapter. Deuteronomy, the 3rd chapter. And I'm going to start reading at verse 24. Deuteronomy 3. Make sure I'm good. No, I'm sorry. This is Deuteronomy, the 2nd chapter. Make it look familiar. And pay attention to what the Lord said here. He says, verse 24, Deuteronomy 2 and verse 24, rise ye up, take your journey, and pass over the river Arnon. Behold, I have given into thy hand Sihon the Amorite, king of Heshbon, and possess it, and contend with him in battle. This day will I begin to put the dread of thee and the fear of thee upon the nations that are under the whole heaven, who shall hear report of thee, and shall tremble and be in anguish because of thee. So when the Lord had the children of Israel to start entering into the land, they started conquering the kings that was before them, the Lord said that he was going to have everybody that even heard of it dreadful, worried, terrified. See, the Lord can do that to a nation, and nations he's talking about here.
He can do that. He has that power. He has that power. I'm going to show you he has that power. Let's go to Joshua, the second chapter. Joshua 2, and I'm going to start reading at verse 1. And Joshua, the son of Nun, sent out of Shittim 2 men to spy secretly, saying, Go, view the land, even Jericho. And they went and came into an harlot's house named Rahab and lodged there. Okay, so now we dealing with the harlot, Rahab, and Joshua sent the spies in to spy out the land. Long story short, she hid them away because they was found out. She hid them and helped them escape. But pay attention to what she said out of her own mouth. She said, and she said unto them at verse 9, I know that your Lord hath given you the land, and that your terror is fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land faint because of you. You see that? The Lord did exactly that. For we heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you, when ye came out of Egypt, and what ye did unto the 2 kings of the Amorites, that were on the other side of Jordan, Sihon and Og, whom ye utterly destroyed. As soon as we heard these things, our hearts did melt. Neither did there remain any more courage in any man, because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God in heaven above and in earth beneath. So that lets you know the Lord put the dread and the fear of them people into the nations. When that wall fell, they wasn't in no position to fight. They wasn't in no position to fight. They probably tried, but they already fearful. The Lord have already put them in a position to be conquered through fear, like he said he was going to do. He had already changed their mind to know we're going to be destroyed. And they was fearful and pretty much was waiting on it for the most part. But that's from God. That's how God will do it. To make his ultimate end come to pass. And I can see some of the same characteristics going on in this nation over here, the United States of America today. He is destroying the very fabric of this nation, the spirit of this nation. He's doing that. He's the only one that can do that. Let's go to Philippians, the 2nd chapter. Philippians, the 2nd chapter. And we're going to read one verse here. Philippians 2, and I'm going to read verse 13. For it is God which worketh in you both to will and to do his good pleasure. What he's saying right there, God is the one that's working inside of you. He's the one that's ultimately maneuvering your spirit to do what he wants to be done. Just like he maneuvered Cyrus' spirit to do what he needs to be done. He stirred up the spirit of Pharaoh or gave Joseph favor in the sight of Pharaoh. You know, all the examples that we've been reading, God is the one doing it, whether they were good emotions or bad emotions. God is in control of them all. Because even the bad ones, he got evil angels for that as well. So that's what he's saying. For it is God which worketh in you both to will and to do his good pleasure. God is the one. He manipulates the hearts of man. He controls the hearts of man ultimately. Revelation 17 chapter. Revelation 17 chapter. We're going to check out a little end time prophecy. This hasn't even come to pass yet. But to show you that God is going to be working this same magic all the way to the end. All the way to the end of this of the current society we used to live in. Revelation 17. And we're going to read a little end time prophecy. But just pay attention to what God said he's going to do at the end. And there came one of 7 angels which heard, Revelation 17, I'm going to start reading at verse 1. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto you the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of the names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations, filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. Now, he's talking about pretty much, I'm going to do a lesson one day to show you that this is really much referring to the Roman Catholic Church. because she's the whore that sitteth upon many waters, and that the inhabitants of the earth have become drunk with the wine of her cup. And what he means by the wine of her cup, he's talking about her doctrine, this Catholic religion that she's infested the world with. We're going to keep going though. I'm at verse 6. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which had the 7 heads and 10 horns. And the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they beheld the beast that was and is not and yes is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. That's one of the identifying factors of us knowing about where she come from. You know, the Catholic Church is called the Roman Catholic Church, and the city of Rome sits on 7 hills. It's just a little geographical history for you. You know, the Lord gives you identifiers to recognize things, just like the Pope's title, Vicarious Filii Dei. You know, I'm probably sure you saw it on the internet by now. The Roman numerals in that adds up to 666. He says the number of a man. So, you know, he's giving you signs so you can recognize the end when it comes. So I'm reading verse 9 again. He said, Here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are the 7 mountains which the woman sitteth. And I'm going to save time. We're going to skip to... Now we'll keep going. We ain't doing that. And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet to come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and he is the 7th, and he is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. The 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So that's the 10 kings out of 10 nations that's ultimately in the end going to make up the European common market. Nations that carry the euro, France, Germany, and a few others. You know, is going to at some point become 10. And so he's giving you pretty much some information to identify who you should be looking out for. Because, just to give you a rough summation of it, when the time of the end comes, you know, it's prophesied that the Pope and the leader of the European common market, you know, they're going to cause a lot of havoc on the earth, to the point to where the Lord don't tell you it's going to be a rapture. He's telling you to flee. You better run from them. And you take heed to do so. You can read about it in Daniel, and Jesus wrote about it as well. You know, and these are the nations, like I say, that carry the euro. And just so, and the beast that was and is and yet, that's nothing other than Rome. You know, that's the Roman Empire of old. You know, the Roman Empire encompassed all these nations that we talking about, these 10 nations. They were all part of the Roman Empire. Now, as the Roman Empire fell, they started breaking off into factions, for the most part, individual countries. And they had individual kings. Well, who anointed all these individual kings? The Roman Catholic Church. So therefore, the Roman Catholic Church has been the head and ruler of these nations since their existence, going all the way back to the days of the Roman Empire. And just little information on your way, just to learn something on your way to learning something. You can't carry the euro unless you sign the Treaty of Rome. It still carry the name. But we're going to keep going though. I'm going to read verse 13 again. It says, These all have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb being Jesus, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And they that are with him are called and chosen and favored. So they're going to try to fight God when he come back. And obviously you know how that's going to go. And he said unto me, The waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. I've said the Roman Catholic Church is over all type of countries and stuff like that. Shit. Half of, I think the whole entire South America Catholic, you know. Millions of Catholics here, you know, millions of Catholics in Europe, you know, so she has a lot of power. He goes on to saying, The 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, These shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate, naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree, and to give their kingdom unto the beast, unto the words of God be fulfilled. So the Lord said he's going to put it in the hearts of these nations to do this. They said he's going to do this. He's going to put it in their hearts to do this, just to fulfill his will. See, God's going to be working this same trick all the way to the end of the world, people. He ain't got to change because you can't stop him. And the angels are more powerful than we are. So when he sent out these unclean spirits, and they start getting in the minds of these men in power and these nations and these peoples, they're ultimately going to do what the Lord wants them to do. And all we have to do is be able to recognize it, because he give us the mind to recognize it, so we know to stay clear and get out the way. But that's end time. But let's keep going. Let's go back to Matthew. Matthew the 24th chapter. Going back too far. Matthew the 24th chapter. Matthew 24. And I'm going to start reading at verse 6. Matthew the 24th chapter. And just pay attention to what Jesus had to say about this situation. And ye shall hear wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you. And ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall arise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. Goes on to say, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. So Jesus is telling you about what we was talking about and how the condition of the world is going to be in. Because God is going to be stirring up the whole world to be at one another. At one another. Just like we just read in Revelations. Let's go to Ecclesiastes, the 9th chapter. Ecclesiastes, the 9th chapter. Ecclesiastes, the 9th chapter. And I'm going to start reading at verse 10. Ecclesiastes 9 and verse 10. Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave whither thou goest. So this is something I wanted to kind of end it off with, because we still have a job to do. We still have roles to play, and we can't be caught up, with all the moves being made around us. All we got to do is continue to strive, continue to work, continue to stay diligent when it comes to serving the Lord, and then trust me, he's going to move our minds in a direction that's going to be to our benefit. Because all things work together for good for the ones that, serving the Lord. He goes on to say, I returned and I saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor riches to the men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill. But time and chance happeneth to them all. See what I mean? So it's not always about you. I think all the examples that we've read today in the Bible of past situations should show that it's not always going to be about you. The Lord is ultimately the one working these things out, whether it's for your favor or whether it's to your hurt. He's working it out for his will to be done. That's what he means when he says that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor riches to the men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill. But time and chance happeneth to them all. For man also knoweth not his time. Was that it I wanted to read that? Yeah, that was it. That was it. I got one more spot I want to read. And that's going to be 2 Timothy, the second chapter. So we got to understand, that all we got to do the work that is set before us. And that work is to serve the Lord and recognize the spirits and the hearts of the people that we come in contact with, and not get so overly caught up with it, not get bent out of shape because at the end game, the Lord is the one that's moving people to behave a certain way, or say a certain thing, or do a certain thing, or even feel a certain way. The Lord is the one doing that. So all we can do is make ourselves useful to God, people. That's all we can do. That's what Joseph continued to do. He continued to serve the Lord and strive to be righteous and do the right thing, and he proved himself useful to God. As Paul is going to tell us right here. 2 Timothy, the 2nd chapter, and I'm going to start reading at verse 19. Nevertheless, the foundation of God standeth sure, having this seal. The Lord knoweth them that are his. And let everyone that name the name of Christ depart from iniquity. But in the great house there are not only vessels of gold and of silver, but also of wood and of earth, and some to honor and some to dishonor. So it's going to be people that, that's going to be good, it's going to be bad. It's going to be wretched people, it's going to be righteous people. It's going to be clean, it's going to be dirty. It's going to be poor, it's going to be rich. So we got to understand that. At verse 21 it goes, if a man therefore purge himself from these, he shall be a vessel unto honor, sanctified and meet for the master's use, and prepared unto every good work. So that's what we need to do. That's all we need to focus on. We don't need to get too caught up with the condition and the mindsets of everybody else, because like the title of the lesson said, the Lord is in control. He controls the hearts of men, just like he controls the hearts of kings, nations, animals, dogs, cats, lions, tigers, and bears. God is the one ultimately pulling the strings behind the scenes. And he's doing it through the angels that he got doing his will. And as long as we understand that, we know we just need to stay focused, stay diligent, don't be idle, and make ourselves useful for the master when our time comes, and he can manipulate our mind to do his will and do his righteous work. I hope you got some understanding in the name of Jesus. Till next time.